Ladies, this pregnant lady is so ready. I need you. I need this episode. I need this inspiration. I'm so thankful that you're here. Welcome, Belinda and Venise.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We're happy to give you lots of ideas for
We
the
both
coming months.
both have two kids, and so we feel that struggle.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I mean, I've seen reels about it on social media and I've heard from my friends, but like you don't understand until you're pregnant when like all of a sudden water tastes weird and you just like can't drink normal water. It's crazy. It's so weird, like pregnancy aversions to liquids. You ladies, I got to meet you at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show and I love your story. I love that you're sisters and you're plant ladies and your cocktail makers. How did you become this like amazing duo that you are today?
Long story short, so 1988, I was born. So I'm 4 years younger than Venise.
And we are real sisters.
Yeah, we grew up in a family business, and so we kind of always saw that modeled and thought it was, an inspiring and really beneficial way to run a small business. When we started our careers, we were both in tech and both in human resources, and we were kind of, when we had our first kids, fittingly enough, we were like, well, this is a long commute. We were both commuting like 90 minutes each way. And we would love to feel more connected to the work that we were doing. I think we're very millennial in that way, where like we grew up and then wanted to like just kind of slow down and have these like greener pastures. And so Venise had started a hobby farm, and then moved to like a big farm. And so we were blogging kind of about that process and about the granny arts, which are so popular now, but I feel like we're a little bit more niche back then of like, I started canning and trying to figure out how did my aunts do this back in the day, and asking them to show me.
When was this?
This is like back in like 2014. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my first son was born in 2014. Our kids are 3 weeks apart, which is like very fun. And also feels like we're like talking about the Babysitters Club or something.
Wow.
We grew up and we had kids 3 weeks apart. And then when I started a mobile bar, which was like a cocktail catering company, and my idea was just to do something mobile and do something in food that would be really fun and just rewarding for me because I was enjoying making things from scratch so much and cooking from my garden so much. And once that started, the very first event we ever did, we made a syrup for it that was kind of like unique, rhubarb vanilla bean, and people kept asking about, oh, how do I make this drink at home? This is so good. Venise was there hauling ice at that event and was like, okay, you need to bottle this. I had already kind of tapped her on the shoulder to give me a row or half a row of things that she would grow for that mobile bar business at her new farm. And she was just like, I'm growing way too much. It was a problem that we run into often where we're like, we hate to waste anything. So now I guess let's make a whole new business out of it. So we decided to make simple syrups and produce them in small batches, but it used a lot more of the edible flowers and herbs and produce and things that she was growing. And then we just expanded the syrup business over time, stopped blogging because running a business is very time consuming. And it evolved into what it is today, which is like a subscription box syrup company with like 10 or so flavors at a time, a soda shop where we did like a cocktail cafe and tasting headquarters, which is another story because it's currently closed. Yeah, we just kind of let it evolve as it went. We're very big on not making 5-year plans and seeing opportunities as they come and following them.
That. Venise, tell me about your homesteading journey.
Yeah, so I was one of those kids who just liked to be outside, but had no idea. I was really into animals, so I grew up riding horses and just thought that a career riding horses would be the best job ever. And so I ended up going to Montana State out of high school and just really fell in love with agriculture, took a lot of agriculture classes, had never ever thought that I would want to farm. It was very much like I'm gonna have a ranch and have all these horses one day. But quickly realized that I didn't really want to make a hobby into a job, which is funny because here I am. But
Such an important lesson.
And so ended up with a human development degree, but really bought some property. We I knew that I wanted to have land and that I wanted to have enough property for these little mini goats that I had acquired. And we had some chickens on our we had an acre at our first house. And as goats do, when you have a male and a female, they procreate. And so then I had a lot of little tiny baby goats running around, and I was like, I need more land, obviously. And so we went and we found a 10-acre farm. It was, like a lot of farms, needed a lot of work. And I was young. We were in our 20s, my husband and I, and we just kind of hit the ground running. We had no idea what we were doing. I had never canned anything. I had never grown a garden before. I had these goats and I had these chickens, and they were really like the catapult that got us going. Belinda was actually more of a gardener at the time, and she had this cute little backyard garden. And so I thought, well, I don't know if I can grow a lot of things, and so I'm going to try to grow one thing and one thing really well. And like Belinda said, we're both millennials, and so I did what every good millennial does, and I Googled what is the most profitable crop to grow on small acreage. And garlic kept coming up. And so the first thing I ever planted was an entire half acre of garlic, which is a ton of garlic. Yeah. And I just jump in because that's just kind of that's my personality. I was like, I'm going to do it. And so we bought $1,500 worth of garlic seed, and we planted a bunch of garlic. And we had this guy come over, and he is kind of known locally for growing amazing heirloom garlic. And so he gave us a garlic 101 lesson on the back of his pickup, and we went to town. And then like Belinda said, eventually things evolved, and I have a fall baby. And so both of us do, and she's a late September, my firstborn. And so she came along, and I was, very pregnant, and garlic is a fall crop where I'm at. And so it needed to grow on the ground, and I was in no position to have any desire to grow any garlic.
She also had really, really hard pregnancies.
Yeah. I was sick the entire 9 months, puking every single day. So there is no way any garlic was getting in the ground. And so if you don't plant garlic, it rots and it's done. And so that pretty big investment that we had made into garlic was done with it. And so, but it was fine. I pivoted. Belinda was like, well, what you could do is you could grow all these vegetables and herbs and flowers for me. And so I was like, all right. The first thing I did was plant a bunch of pumpkins the next time, because pumpkins make me happy. I'm an October baby. And so, and then little by little, we just kept growing more and more things that would go into drinks and experimenting. It was really fun. We, seed catalog from all over, and, figuring out, oh, that sounds fun. One of my first employees was somebody who really loved to garden too. And so we would really nerd out over seed catalogs and try all these crazy things that were edible.
Yeah. So is your farm, it sounds like you have livestock, chickens, you have a lot of things going on at your homestead. Is it a hobby homestead that feeds your family, or are you profiting separately off of that in a separate CSA farmers market situation, or are you solely growing cocktail elements for your shared business together?
Yeah, so the business side of the farm is definitely solely syrups.
Cool.
And then we did, like Belinda said, we had a tasting room that was open to the public. We still have the tasting room, and it was a restaurant, and so we would grow for that. It changed every single season. It was kind of like, what is the farm producing right now, and how can we use it? Wow. And then we do also, we have our own livestock and things for our family. And there's always a section of the garden that I save. And our, the kids have their own garden that they get to garden in, and I have my little plots that bring me joy and are not related to the business.
And what do you grow in those?
I love butternut squash because it saves for a really long time, and we eat it all winter. So I grow a lot of butternut squash every year. Garlic, I still like to grow garlic, just on a much smaller scale. Elephant garlic.
Over the years, you rebuilt your seed stock on garlic, because you couldn't like she was so sad when she lost all that garlic, and then like to not do it continuously, I feel like it was like a key piece of you needed to get back.
Yeah, I feel, and now actually what I'm really nerding out over is elephant garlic. And so, because elephant garlic is actually, the seed stock is really hard to find. And so I'm trying to rebuild that so that I can sell that once again. But again, seed stock is expensive and hard to find. And so I'm just kind of slowly over the years multiplying my own seed. And then tomatoes. I love tomatoes. They bring me so much joy. And then a lot of berries.
I was gonna say.
A lot of berries. I really went all in on the berries this year because that's what my kids eat the most of. And so...
And we don't have the space to like commercially grow enough berries for our syrups because it takes 100 pounds of berries to make one bottle of syrup, or not bottle, one batch. And so we luckily live in an area that has a lot of berry farms, really like fertile ground in the valley below where we live. We're up on a plateau in the valley below. We can source a lot of the stuff that we don't grow.
That's amazing. So you get to grow berries for your kids and enjoy them, because those strawberries get expensive at the grocery store and at the farmer's market. And then you source your berries for your syrups. This is such a cool partnership between the two of you. Venise having the land and the plot and the garden passion, and then Belinda feeling like you have the like cocktail and entrepreneurial spirit with your, you know, mobile cocktail bar. What does a cocktail garden entail? So what did your cocktail garden start as? What was your first couple of crops that you grew, and then how has it grown?
Well, I think it can look really different for your own situation. So a cocktail garden can be like, you know, on a patio, and a cocktail garden can be, you know, an acre on a farm. And so I still garden, and my kitchen garden at home is like 4 or 5 raised beds plus pots.
Belinda lives in town, like
How far are you from each other?
We're like 6 miles away from each other.
Amazing.
Yeah, but they're 2 towns, so it's 2 small towns. Mine has like 10,000 people. Hers has like 2,500 people, and they're within like 6 miles of each other.
That's amazing. Okay, so anyway, back to what you were saying, Belinda.
Yeah, so my garden looks definitely different than Venice's, but there's definitely overlaps as well. So we both grow a decent amount of edible flowers. You know, she'll do an entire row or half a row of edible flowers, especially ones that are perennial, that are going to come back year after year, or they're self-seeding annuals, since we're in a pretty mild climate. And so we can just, you know, harvest them all season long and then let them come back the next year. But in my situation, I might just grow like 1 or 2 plants of that because I only need, you know, so many edible flowers to garnish a drink or a salad or make something with.
I was going to ask, so the edible flowers are really more garnishes, right? You're not like making a syrup out of edible flowers.
It depends. Yeah, so we have like in our book, Drink Your Garden, we have a whole like edible flower chart because we use them for all different things. So some of them, and that's part of what the trial and error that Venise was talking about, of going through every seed catalog and figuring out like, okay, we do or we do not like to grow this. And once you grow this, you know, in a seed catalog, you just get that little picture. And you can do more research, obviously, and figure out, like, what does this plant look like? But a good example is something like calendula. The blooms can be huge or they can be really small. And without having, you know, a reference of growing it once and kind of knowing exactly what you like, you might plant the wrong one. A really big flower doesn't make as great of a garnish. And so then when we did that, we tried to figure out, okay, how do we use these big petals that are color fast? They hold their color when they're frozen or dried. They also have a lot of like really great anti-inflammatory properties. So you can put them into skincare, or you can dry them, you know, and make edible flower sugars and salt rimmers. So there's a variety of things that we do with each of them. Some of them are just for a garnish. Some of them have flavor. So like we grow a lot of lavender. We grow a lot of like chamomile. And we dry that as well for that flavor.
What would be your top 5 recommendations for edible flowers for people to grow? Because I love viola, and I just love growing edible, like nasturtium for me is always a staple in my garden. Like, I think people overlook the edible flowers, but it's so joyful to like throw some flowers in a salad or put them in an ice cube or something. So what are your favorites that you feel like are easy to grow?
Definitely. I mean, we always grow nasturtium, like you mentioned. They're a really great pest deterrent. Same with marigold. I always grow those near my tomatoes. They tend to attract aphids and keep them there. But I'll always grow them in multiple spots in the garden because one spot might become like kind of a buffer zone for bugs to attract it to, and then another spot will stay nice and clean and I can plant or pick and eat those. I also love a viola, like you mentioned. Those are obviously pretty, and what's great about them is that they're going to grow in colder months. So a lot of the edible flowers come in just in like the end of August. Around here we're in 8B. You are as well, right? And so it's like a shorter season and we have to wait a long time to get the blooms sometimes, but violas are nice because they're going to come earlier. What about you? What are your favorites? I love lavender. We love the flavor
on the
of
farm.
incense.
On the farm, we kind of have two different philosophies. We have production philosophy, and so those flowers are the ones that I know are pretty low maintenance. You can kind of crank, like Belinda said. They self-seed a lot of times, so a lot of calendula just because it's what Mother Nature gives me. Calendula will come up in the middle of the driveway and thrive. And so, and then same with bachelor buttons. Bachelor buttons are another one. They are really no fuss. And then I have a whole kind of different section that we call the cocktail garden, but it's kind of our trial area. And that's where I grow a lot of the fussier plants that need a lot more maintenance.
And
we
those
do
are in raised beds.
Yeah, and then we do have a greenhouse where some of the stuff, we don't get a lot of heat, especially we don't get our good heat until July, and so some of that stuff needs to be started and kept really nice and warm in order to go. And so that's not a production, but that is for the tasting room or for photos, for recipes, for inspiration, and then some of it's just because I use it personally. So I think one of my favorites that I like, there's a buzz button. An electric daisy is another common name for it, but it has a mouth numbing effect.
It's really fun.
There's a bar at the Cosmopolitan that made it famous in Las Vegas, and it is probably my personal favorite to grow because I just love eating them. They're just fun. They have a tingling effect, and some people salivate a lot. Some people call it spicy. It's a fun party trick. Whenever I go to a party with some buzz buttons, I instantly become the most interesting person in the room.
That's so fun. I love that. So what are the different types of plants that you're growing? You mentioned edible flowers, but for your business, for this, cocktail, syrup, tincture, cocktail book, business, what are the different types of plants that people should think about growing if they wanted to build out a cocktail garden of their own?
Yeah, a cocktail garden really should have a balance of edible flowers, herbs, some vegetables that you enjoy the flavor of in drinks, right? Don't plant anything you don't actually like. And then fruits are nice to have too, but if you don't have the space, that's totally fine too. But maybe even just a rhubarb plant or something. So it's kind of just a balance of those four things. And what's nice about that is that not a lot of people, when they start gardening, realize how important and beneficial edible flowers and herbs are to your kitchen or culinary garden. They're great companions. They're great. They fill in space. If you've got root vegetables, you can plant herbs right over the top because their roots are not going to interrupt each other. And it just is really good for the general health of your garden. They're great companion plants. So in the production side of herbs, we grow a lot of, again, perennials and things that we've had, established and start from plugs and then can replant every 5-7 years. So it'd be rosemary, thyme, sage. Our sage plants on the farm are at one time they were as big as school bus. It was just huge.
Now our
rosemary.
rosemary. Now our rosemary is so massive.
Yeah.
I could sell so much rosemary.
Specifically, we do a purple sage. So there's also different flavors within herbs, and there's the ones that you might find most easily at a garden center might not be the ones that are the most tasty or exciting in drinks. Green sage is often more of a culinary kind of cooking. People think about it. It's very affiliated with Thanksgiving and turkey. And so a purple sage is just a little bit more mild and has a little more of a flavor that balances well in drinks versus taking over the whole thing. So we look into varieties of the herbs within it. So there's a mojito mint and then there's spearmint. And you might for drinks want to grow more of a mojito mint. So there's a lot of fun within the herbs as well.
Yeah, totally. And are you growing them in like a monoculture rows of each thing, or are you interplanting them all?
On the farm,
Oh.
yeah, it's a little bit of both. So not everything. We have about 15 rows, and they're 100-foot rows, and so not everything I need a 100-foot row. And so I'll intersperse. Sometimes I'll go every other, so every other hole. We grow on raised beds. We're in the Pacific Northwest, so it gets very rainy and very soggy. And so, especially for the herbs, the Mediterranean herbs like a rosemary and like a lavender, they need to drain well. So everything gets, even out in the field, everything's in a poled raised bed. And then we grow with like a reusable plastic mulch. A lot of flower farmers do it also. And that keeps my, obviously, labor down in weeding. Our farm used to be a dairy, and so we have a lot of pasture grass that I compete with all the time. And so rather than spraying to kill that pasture grass, we just use that mulch. It's nice. I've had the same mulch now for, I think we're going on 8 years, and I just pull it up at the end of the season and kind of pull all of the roots off of it, of all of the weeds, and then I can lay it back down and plant directly into it. So it makes my job so much easier. And so yeah, it kind of depends on what we need. And then in the beds, I am rotating my beds. So, if I'm growing one thing in it out 1 year, then I'm trying to grow something else. There's a couple of crops that just naturally want to stay in the same bed. And so I have a general philosophy around gardening and farming of work smarter, not harder, and let Mother Nature do as much of the work as she's willing to do. And so it means my beds are a little bit not perfect and a little bit messy.
It looks like an organic farm.
Yeah, but if there's a calendula plant that really wants to come up there, I always say, like, who am I to stop that little tiny plant? So,
But then again, we're very different because, like, what I'm doing at home, I have this, very limited space, but I want a little bit of everything. And since we start a lot of seeds typically in the greenhouse every year, I can kind of like pull one plant here and pull one plant here, or, go to the farmer's market and buy a lot of starts. And so the way I set up like my raised beds is very interspersed and very intermingling and very, I'm one of the people who subscribes to like a very crowded bed. That's like a really prolific producer. You have to feed them and water them appropriately in order to get away with planting that way. But it took me a few years of learning, like, oh, you don't actually need to do 1 square foot per plant. Like all of the garden books tell you, you can, with the right companions, plant much more densely and intentionally to get, kind of I don't know how to edit myself. So I'm like, I want peppers and tomatoes and peas and green onions and flowers and herbs, and I want them all in this space.
I'm right there with you. I'm a big intensive planter.
yeah.
And I pay for it sometimes. Sometimes I'm too aggressive about it, but to me it's worth it. So what are the different I was impressed when I was looking at your book at all of the different ways you guys really have given us opportunities to use our garden harvests in cocktails. This book, it's not just like a mojito, like smash up some mint. It's, you've got like shrubs, you've got tinctures. Like, what are all the different ways that we can explore taking probably some of the herbs that we're already growing in our culinary gardens, and then maybe if we want to extend into cocktail gardens, what are the different ways that we can create fun things to elevate our drinks and cocktails?
Yeah. Well, the book is laid out kind of to create a pantry of ingredients that you can then, it's like your own personal bar cart from your garden. And so it goes chapter by chapter: syrups, shrubs, tinctures, bitters, garnishes, teas, and dried flowers, juices. And then it kind of moves into the mocktail section and the cocktail section. So the uses are really widespread. And again, that comes from us being people who hate wasting things. And when you grow something, you're like, I must like use this to the best of its extent. I'm so excited that I grew this. And so we just tried to figure out, like, can you pickle this? Can you preserve this in another way? Can you juice this and freeze this so that you can end up having these, really delicious drinks, season to season, instead of, like you mentioned, just like muddling an herb into a drink, which is also delicious, but there's a lot more that you can do with it to preserve those flavors and pull out. So there's a a whole section on like infusing. I say people should buy the book for the infusing chart alone because it's one of the best things I ever made besides my children. It took years of research to figure out like it's combining a lot of stuff from drink and bartending books, even like apothecary type books and garden books of like, here's all the different plants you can use. Here's how long to infuse them. Should you infuse them hot or cold? What are some things you need to consider? Are there like sepals or other things that you need to pull off of this plant so that you don't get a bitter off taste? And so we kind of go through all of the knowledge on that because you can make things in a lot of different ways and get a lot of different flavors out of it. But it is something that takes a lot of like time and craft to learn how to do well, or just read the book.
There's also a lot of tips, and one of the things that we did when we set out to read the book or to write the book is write the book that we couldn't find when we were trying to start our business.
Yeah.
So every single syrup that we made, you know, like Belinda said, with experimenting in our own kitchen and then scaling it up. And so what's unique about the book, I think, is that the other thing is that we've tasted every single plant that's in the book. We've tasted every single, and there's just we've read some cocktail books and it's like, yes, technically that's edible, but it wouldn't be very good. Yeah. Like it's not actually good. And so,
or the flavors are just really exaggerated. Like everyone's saying that violas taste like lightly of spearmint. I mean, very lightly. Like you're not, it leads you to believe that like, oh, if I dried these and ground them up, it'll add this great flavor on top of like a shortcake or something. It's so mild. So like,
Right.
There's other better uses maybe for this than that.
So you kind of briefly mentioned, you know, syrups, shrubs, blah, blah. Can you walk us through each one of just like what it is and general how it's made, just so people understand the differences of each type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So syrups are the first chapter in the book because they are kind of our bread and butter, but they're also really great like beginner entry into learning how to do this stuff. So it's just sugar, which you can get creative and mix up the types of sugars to get different types of flavors. Like sometimes I'll use brown sugar if I want to add like a molassesy flavor, and then water, and then whatever you're infusing. So it might be fruit, it might be a vegetable. You can make like a cucumber mint syrup and use the juice from the cucumber instead of the water in the recipe. And so there's kind of a starter recipe or master recipe that teaches you like, here's all the things to consider when you're making a syrup. And then there's, I think, 7 or 8 examples of syrups that we make all the time that we really love, that we find versatile, and that are then applied to the recipes in the back. One of the things we, again, worked really hard on is I got frustrated with the cocktail books that I would buy and, non-alc books because they would have one example. It would be like, make this syrup and make this one drink. Now what am I supposed to do with the other 9 ounces that I made, And it didn't give you ideas on that. And so there's a lot of cross-referencing. So once you make a, Marionberry mint syrup, here's all the other places in the book that you can use it, which is super helpful.
I'm curious right now, I'm sure you can't pick like your all-time favorite, but what are each of your favorite syrups that you like to make for your own drinks?
Yeah, that is really hard. I love an herbal syrup. I guess, that's what I always go back to. It's, for me, one that I can drink repeatedly without getting like flavor fatigue. So whenever I have like a berry syrup or something, like I eventually get sick of strawberry. So I love, in the book, we just have a rosemary simple syrup. Commercially, we make one that's like a blended one with all the herbs from our farm, and it's called Herb Garden Syrup. That one would be mine.
And how do you like to drink? Like, what do you like to make with it? What's the cocktail you make with it?
Well, I think one of the things I like about it is that I can make a non-alc drink that still feels really like sophisticated. It feels elevated. It feels different than like a juice, right? Mm-hmm. One of the biggest complaints people have about drinking non-alc is that everything kind of seems too sweet. So I like to just do it with like tonic or club soda, maybe a twist of lime or lemon. I love to like muddle some cucumber in there. That's kind of my go-to. Or I love to do it with gin. I love gin. And
yum. Yeah. So an herbal simple syrup, gin, muddled cucumber. That sounds really good. But with tonic, that makes it nice. Because I agree. Every time we're in a restaurant and I go to the mocktail section, it's so sweet. And then also you get it and you drink it because it's so sweet. You drink it so fast.
Yeah.
And then, I'm like a Negroni person. I like a drink that is hard to drink, that I can like nurse. What about you, Venice? What's your favorite syrup and cocktail of the moment?
Yeah, so my favorite syrup is one that is pretty seasonal for us, so we don't always have it. So I like it because it's exciting when it comes out, and it is jalapeno lime. Because I like a little spice, and but I really like the sweetness. Belinda and I have very different palates, so I am the sweeter drinker. So I do like a really sweet drink, but I like it to not be just sweet. So I like that other. So I also love our herb garden syrup is a classic for me, but I get excited when lime jalapeno comes out because also reminds me of summer. And I also, Belinda and I were talking the other day, but I'm a seasonal drinker. I drink almost not at all in the winter, but in the summer it just feels like a good time to have a
Because
drink.
we're in the Pacific Northwest, so it's like you like to have a drink outside in the sunshine with the garden. I feel like it's just a sunshine thing, and if the Pacific Northwest had more sunshine, we'd probably drink more.
Sure.
But, I don't really like sitting inside and having a drink.
Yeah.
So that jalapeno sounds interesting because it's the spicy of the jalapeno, but then it's the sweet of the sugar of the syrup, right? So it's like a sweet and spicy situation.
And then it's got the lime, and it's got quite a bit of lime in it. So it's got the sweet, sour, and spicy. And so that's what I love about our syrups, and you know, whether it's the bottled ones or the ones in the book, is that we always layer. So you're never just going to get a lime syrup from us. You're always going to get multiple different flavors in the syrup, because I always say that I'm a really lazy drinker. So when I'm drinking, I'm not Belinda. I'm not getting out 14 tools, 3 different liquor bottles when I make a drink. I want to make it fast. And that's why, you know, a lot of times I'll just go for a cider or a beer because it's quick. But when I'm making a cocktail, that's what I love about ours, is that
The
it's
complexity is just built in.
yeah, so it's a club soda, syrup, and then whatever spirit I'm putting inside of it.
Yeah, with tequila, that might be my favorite. I love a spicy margarita.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
like
could
a
probably
ranch
make
water version of that.
Yeah, and I could probably make a cool mocktail with that syrup.
You sure can.
And some, what would you suggest? Not tonic. Would it be just seltzer? Like,
A seltzer. Yeah, it doesn't need anything else. Everything else is like in the syrup
is
itself.
there? And a
Yeah.
little like tahini rim. Oh my God, that sounds
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we covered syrups. Now let's move to shrubs. What is a shrub and how do you use it?
Yeah, so shrubs just take that same kind of framework of a syrup, except you're replacing the water with vinegar. And, you know, when the water is heated making a syrup, it's the heat that's pulling out and extracting flavor, as well as sugar. Sugar is a really great way to break down flavors. That's why, like, you know, when you make a jam, the berries only start to fall apart usually once the sugar has been introduced. In this case, the vinegar is a really great solvent, so it's extracting flavor from the products you're putting in it. And then because it's so acidic, it has a really long shelf life. So shrubs were invented in like colonial times as a way to preserve fruit flavors throughout the seasons. This is like the world's first sodas were basically water plus a shrub. And so it's got a little bit of sweet. It's got like either a vegetable or fruit or spice kind of flavor to it that you're infusing, and it's got vinegar. They drink kind of sour and tart. People might want to do like half vinegar, half water or something, because it can be a little bit assertive for people. But if you like kombucha or if you like really, you know, tart things, then you'll like a shrub. And there, we talk about it a little bit in the book. We're not usually coming from things from a super wellness point of view, but shrubs do have a lot of like beneficial kind of probiotic properties naturally if you use a vinegar that is made with the mother. So you have to use like the Bragg's apple cider vinegar, but then you have a drink that's actually good for you as well.
Yeah, shrubs like had a moment. I feel like a couple of years ago, everybody was like making shrubs.
Yeah.
Are they meant to be drank at 100%? Like you cook the shrub and then you drink it? Or are you meant to have like a tablespoon of a shrub diluted with a glass of water?
Yeah, very much diluted. Not quite a tablespoon. We say like an ounce, which would be like 2 tablespoons. But yeah, they are meant to be diluted. I like it I love carbonation, so I'll put them in sparkling water, but you can do it in flat water as well.
Okay, I like this question of asking each of you, okay, so what's your favorite shrub and how are you drinking it? Or how would you suggest drinking it as well?
You go first.
Well, that's one of those things, is that I don't like shrubs. So I don't like vinegar. I don't like pickles. I mean, I'll
love
do.
pickles, and she hates them.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
It's not my palate at all. So if it is, I use a tiny bit of shrub. Like I do like drinks with shrubs in them, but they have to be really, really balanced. If I get that like acidity, that hit of acidity, I'm not into it anymore. And so a sweet shrub, again, a sweet palette. And
There's
so like a
one, like-
strawberry, Belinda's done like a strawberry basil, like a very like summery. Or I do like beets, and so there is a beet shrub.
Ooh,
in
let me talk
there.
about that because that's my favorite.
Yeah,
Yum.
beets are very sweet.
Yeah. The beet shrub is really surprising for people, and it's so fun because I just did an event with the beet shrub this weekend, and the color of it is just like stunningly gorgeous. And obviously not if you use a golden beet, but if you're using like a boar's blood or like a very red beet, the color the shrub ends up being is this like magenta once you put it in a drink. And it's stunning. And so you might not even tell people that it's in there unless, you know, it's like professional setting and you need to for allergy concerns. But they will drink it and love it. People don't think they're going to love drinking beets, but it is such a good shrub. It is not only sweet naturally, but it's got a kind of earthy flavor to it. It pairs really well with herbs. So we love to put the beet shrub in with like an herbal syrup, like a rosemary syrup, a little bit of... Yeah, you could add like orange bitters or a twist of orange peel in there, and some club soda or flat water, shake it up, and that's a great NA cocktail. And then the same drink with like gin and triple sec. The drink is called the Heartbeat in the book, and it is the most approachable cocktail made with beets that you will ever try.
I'm just realizing my baby shower's in like 3 weeks, and I feel like I need to do a mocktail from your book. Do you have any? Are any of them blue?
Yeah, blueberry, lavender. Well, blueberry lavender makes kind of more of a purpley blue.
Okay.
Kind of more indigo. The other ways that you could get a blue is through blue spirulina, that flower, which you can buy on like Amazon and stuff. That doesn't have a great flavor, but you can cover up that flavor with other things in the syrup. You'll end up with a blue color. So I've definitely been asked professionally a lot to be like, I need green cocktails. I need blue cocktails.
Right.
And when I need blue, that's what I do.
I love that. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's shrubs. I love a shrub, so I love that. And that beet shrub sounds really good. What about tinctures? Now we're venturing. So is a tincture a bitters?
Great question. Bitters are more complex than tinctures. So
Okay.
tinctures are alcohol extracted ingredients. And they usually have like top 3 maybe ingredients in them. So when you make a tincture, tinctures are also made in herbalism to be like, you know, medicinal. You're basically extracting the flavor and, you know, the compounds from an herb, flower, or whatever, and then root, spice, whatever, and then you're just letting it sit in a bottle of high proof alcohol for however long. In the book will give you ideas on that. Because it might be like a month for certain flavors, or they might extract super quick. Like a hot pepper will extract within 12 hours. Really hot peppers will extract within 30 minutes. So you kind of have to base it off of the Scoville units. But the tinctures are different in just that they have less in them. Now bitters are more complex. Bitters are going to be like 10, 20, 30 ingredients, and the purpose of a bitter is more like historically digestion, and so there's a lot of like roots and like things like wormwood and ginger in there that are going to help you digest food. That was kind of the original idea behind them. And so bitters are just more complex. They've got a lot more ingredients, a lot more blends of flavors, and a tincture is about extracting single or a couple flavors at a time. As well as, you know, they're used for... Bitters are a lot more about flavor and digestion. Tinctures can be more like, this is also medicinal.
Okay, got it. Do you sell bitters and tinctures, or you guys just do syrups and shrubs?
Yeah, we don't sell any bitters or tinctures. We made them for our cocktail cafe all the time, but it's a different licensing. And so
Okay,
we
got
just...
it.
Yeah, we
Because
don't
there's
put them.
alcohol involved.
Yeah.
And then there's the infusion of spirits, which is taking a gin and putting a bunch of basil in it, and then make the gin taste like basil.
Yes, yeah. So the purpose of an infused spirit is really more about, you know, flavor or texture or color in a drink versus, you know, pulling kind of all the properties out. Tinctures sit much longer. The infused spirits are a shorter time period. You're just trying to get it until like, yeah, maybe that basil tastes really good in the gin. And that would be a very short time period because your leaf of that plant is very delicate. and you have a lot of kind of off flavors. You know how basil can get kind of bitter sometimes if it sits in a sauce too long. That's why you put it in at the end of a tomato sauce, not at the beginning. And so you would do a very light infusion into like a basil, into a spirit.
What's your most favorite infused spirit that you guys make, and how do you drink it?
Well, that chapter also includes liqueurs. And so I think it's really fun to make liqueurs at home.
What's the difference between an infused spirit and a liqueur, in case we don't know?
Liqueurs just have sugar added.
Okay.
And so, and they also, you're reducing if I take like a whole bottle of vodka and then I infuse something into it, I have the same proof that I started with, right? I might go down by like 1 or 2 points. So it's probably going to be that 40% or 40 proof, 80% kind of alcohol content. When you add the sugar, so you make a simple syrup from the syrup chapter and you add that into your infused spirit, and that makes a liqueur. And you make it in a very specific kind of quantities, because liqueurs should be around 18 to 25%, maybe up to 30 for some varieties of sugar content. So you're getting a different proof. They're less alcoholic, so you can, not feel them as much, or you use less of them in a drink. And they're really used as a modifier in bartending. So I don't typically, but I don't typically like sit there and drink my Tayberry liqueur straight, or even with soda water. I might add it with soda water if I want a really light drink, but usually what I'm doing is using it alongside like gin and Tayberry liqueur and like some grapefruit, and mixing up a cocktail with those three things.
Yum. Okay, so what's your favorite?
Mine is our Buzz Button gin, and it is literally just that Buzz Button flower that I talked about earlier, infused into gin, because I really love gin. And it was an experiment when we first did it, because it was, will that numbing and all of those same properties translate once you infuse it? And it does. And so
Really?
Buzz Buttons are really fun to just eat, but they don't taste great. They taste a lot better fresh once they're dehydrated, which you can dehydrate them, and the properties stay when they're dehydrated. But
it's kind of just like chewing dried spinach. It's not like a great mouth feel.
Okay.
Yeah. Texture.
And they're like a weird conical shape. So and they have a lot of little. The flower is not a flower at all. It's like the inside of a flower, and so it's like a tough chew also. And so when you infuse it into the gin, you get all of the same properties, but it's just a drink. And so I like to do like a shot even just of that. And then I like to try to see how long I can like hold it around and swish it in my mouth, because it creates this weird whole sensation. But
So if you make a gin and tonic with that, are you, the whole time you're drinking that gin and tonic, every sip you take, you're getting that like buzzy, nummy feeling?
yeah, in a gin and tonic, it would be less severe because it would be more diluted.
I think it'd be like a slow build.
Yeah.
So by the end, you would feel, but it would kind of like build on itself, which is kind of fun, because for some people it can be overwhelming at first, just because they don't know what's happening. But usually those same people are like, let's do it again.
It would be it
fun.
is a very fun drink. I've had it as a drink, and it is a slower build, and it's not as intense. And so, yeah, it's my favorite. I think everyone should grow it at least once, because it's a little bit hard to like find.
It sounds like it's a fun bottle to bring to a party.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, you will be instantly the most interesting person in the room. Everyone, if I go on a sales trip, or if I'm trying to like get people to talk to me, I bring that, and then all of a sudden everyone's there. It's a great introduction.
So smart. I love that. What about you, Belinda?
Mine's more traditional. We've talked a lot about gin, and I do love gin, but I also love bourbon. Both very flavorful spirits. And there's this drink, or kind of it's a twofer. So like we said, we love to work smarter, not harder. So I like this cherry infused bourbon that we have with a scraped vanilla bean and a little bit of cinnamon. And what's beautiful about that is if you take the time to pit your cherries before you put them into the bourbon, then when you strain out the bourbon after a few days or a week, we've left it up to like a month before, and it's extra delicious that way. But once you strain out the liquid, you get these delicious bourbon soaked cherries. And so I like an old fashioned, and that's my favorite. I get a garnish from it, and I get this really yummy cherry whiskey, which I like very like classic and nostalgic kind of drinks as well. And so you put that cherry whiskey into like just a glass bottle of Coca-Cola, and we call it Midnight at the Movies, and it is so delicious.
Cherry whiskey and Coca-Cola. So it's like an alcoholic cherry Coke?
Yes, exactly. And I love a
Oh my
cherry Coke.
gosh. I love a cherry Coke. That's also like a new thing in my pregnancy. I love cherry Coke. What a great product. Like, why do people not talk about cherry Coke more often?
They really should. And cherry Coke and lime is good.
Yeah. I travel with the little what's it called? True lime packets, the like crystallized lime, because I'll go like to Publix, that's the grocery store in South Florida, and get a cherry Coke, put half diet, half real, and then I bring my own lime packets to put in because I'm crazy. Anyway,
That's wonderful. I mean, we are clearly kindred spirits. We travel with garnishes. We put like herbs in our purse, so that when we go to a bar and get a cheap drink, we can put herbs in it.
I
and
also
have the smell of something better.
I will rebottle our syrup. Like, so when we're traveling, they're in little tiny minis. And then we bring them on the plane with us so that we can get a cocktail and it's good. And then so that when we go to dive bars and there's not anything on the menu that we're super excited about, we just throw a little into a vodka soda or a whiskey soda, and we really
so
love
smart. That's a product. I mean, I feel like if you guys don't already make that product, the travel-sized salts, like the travel-sized fancy Maldon salts and stuff, you guys got to do these travel-sized syrups. That's so smart. Like on a keychain, like a bottle on a keychain. I love that for you.
We've looked into it. They're cost prohibitive in packaging and production, but we've done them in small editions. So when they hit the website, you should buy them because we don't make them very often because they are
our bottler
not
is
easy to make.
Yeah, it's a bottling, like bottlers aren't all sizes, but yes, we have done them before, and we did sell them as little. Our Poppy had on his counter all growing up. He had this like little set, and it had 2 little shot glasses on it, and on the front of it said thirst aid kit. And it was just like one of those weird things that at your grandparents' house that, like, you know, they're little tiny glasses. So we always would like
just
drink
thought they were so cute and fun
out of them and put our juice in them. And so we made little thirst aid kits a while back. And it was when we were doing a Vegas
We
trade
gave them
show.
away at the fancy food show.
Yeah, because Vegas drinks are so expensive and they're not even that good most of the time. And so we just gave them away
I'm
to
not
everyone.
going to try to disparage all the very good bartenders and bars and restaurants that are in Vegas. It's just that we were not going to those places.
Right. Totally.
We were getting out of a trade show at the end of the day and just finding the first food we could.
No, totally. But I like this idea of these syrups, clearly, it sounds like, have such complexity to them. It's not just a simple syrup. It's like this jalapeno. What's the jalapeno one you were saying?
Lime.
And
Jalapeno lime. You literally can just get a tequila on the rocks or a tequila soda and then put that in, and then you've made a mocktail that tastes really good. Because I think we've all been to the dive bar where, like, you can't order something fun because it's gonna come out weird. You've got to order based off of like where you are. But
Yes.
If you're like a snob like me, then you still want something to taste really good. So I love that.
I love it because, yes, dive bars are my absolute favorite, but I am so snobby about my drinks now.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, this is like making me so excited to be postpartum drinking. But I think the fun part is too, I feel like I'm going to order some of your shrubs because that seems like a really easy way to lift a drink up, even if it's just a water, to like throw some pizzazz in there.
Yeah, and some of these flavors that we've been talking about are, they're technically a cordial. We just say syrup for ease and just kind of for people to kind of keep it streamlined. But a cordial is, again, been around for a really long time. And there you're just replacing some of the water with juice. And so when you do that, especially if it's like a sour juice like grapefruit, lime, or lemon, then you've got a sweet, you've got a sour, you've got maybe like an herb or a spice in there. You could do peppercorns or something. And so you just have a really balanced drink right away. And we talk about that in the beginning of the book to kind of teach you how to, when you're putting your flavors together and when you're putting your drinks together, here's what you want to consider. Bartending is a mix of sweet, sour, bitter, spirit. And as long as you're balancing all of those things, you're going to come up with something good.
Okay, I have a couple more random questions for you, and then I will let you ladies go because I can't believe we've been talking for 50 minutes already. My dad is a big gin guy. He collects gin from all over the world. He started Gin and Tonic Fridays, and like he's a real hyper fixator, undiagnosed, like I don't know if he has ADHD, but he's like a real hyperfixator. So now he's like this gin obsessed person. And every Friday he has a gin and tonic. So if I wanted to get him a kick-ass gift, what would you suggest me getting him to elevate a gin and tonic?
Well, our herb garden syrup that we sell on our website, SimpleGoodnessSisters.com, is rosemary, sage, thyme, lemon, and lemon peel. So it's got a ton of complexity. It's very layered, it's very herbal, and we use that with club soda instead of tonic. So we actually, that drink we call better than a G&T. And I don't know if your dad would agree, but I would love to know the result. If he does that and club soda with a good gin, does he like it as well or better than tonic? Because, quality of tonic can vary just like quality of syrups can. And a lot of people, I always challenge people that if you think you don't like gin, maybe you just don't like tonic. Maybe you just had like a really bad like G&T, because that's the way most people have been introduced to this drink. Or to the spirit, but a lot of people who like gin just either don't like gin and tonics, or they had a very, very like London dry gins have a ton of juniper in them, and that's when people start saying like this tastes like a Christmas tree. But there's a lot of gins on the market now that have a lot of other botanicals.
Floral. I mean, this is a gardening podcast. Like gin, the botanicals in gins now are so crazy. I mean, I think it's like wine. Also, I'm my father's daughter, so I've learned a lot about gin over the years, because every time I go over, he's like, okay, well, I just got this one. We got to try this one today. But I think it is the equivalent of wine. If you could do a gin tasting the way you do a wine tasting, and really notice the differences.
So our book, Drink Your Garden, talks about how to make your own gin. And if that hasn't done that yet, that's really fun. It's a compound gin, which is, not a distilled gin, but you make it in a similar fashion. So you start with vodka, or like a neutral grain spirit if you have a way to get a hold of that. But vodka works. And then, which is essentially gin without the botanicals, right? That's what vodka is. And so you take it and you infuse it with all these different things. And we have the recipe in the book that says like, okay, you want to start out with these base things. You're going to need some juniper berries. You're going to need, some orange, but here's some other things you might add in. And so you can kind of like mix and match your own gin that feels like you and has all of your favorite flavors. And compound gins will leach color, so it won't end up a clear spirit like a distilled gin will. But they're really fun to play with, and I think since he's a nerd about gin, he would love that.
Oh my
you can
gosh,
make like
that would
different
be so
models,
fun.
different recipes, and then end up picking his favorite.
I love gin, but I am like that classic new gin drinker. I didn't think I liked gin because I had only had the most juniper heavy gin, and I do not like tonic because I am not a Negroni drinker and I do not like bitter things. And so I will say, if you have never had gin in any other way, you should definitely try it. I always like to say it's really it's a vodka but with personality.
There's a lavender gin out of Washington State, out of Ellensburg. It's called Amethyst Gin, and it's both of our favorite. We love flowers, obviously. So that's a really lavender heavy gin, and it's so good.
Yum. I remember what I wanted to ask you. When it comes to garnishes, we can stick a rosemary in a glass. We can put a viola on top. We can put an edible flower in an ice cube. Is there one creative thing you'd like to offer the audience as something that they might not necessarily know that would be a fun way to elevate a drink?
I think for me, especially because this is a plant-loving audience, the thing to consider is that a top of a glass is a little bit like a bouquet. And so what I notice is that, yes, anyone can put a flower or put a rosemary, but they might not do it in a way that really like makes it look professional or really stand out. And so there's like, when you're thinking about the top of that glass, I like to have something tall. I like to have like my filler and spiller. It's like container gardening, but in a drink glass. And so I like to have something taller. I like to have mixed colors always and have color contrast in there. I like to have something kind of like smaller, like maybe it's a little wedge of citrus, or it's the flower that sits flat on the top of the drink. And then I like to have something on the rim. And so when you do kind of a combination of those things, that's what makes it look like, okay, I just paid $15 for this at a cocktail bar. I also think don't sleep on rims. People who think maybe, well, I don't like a salt rim, that's interruptive. But you can do rims that are just powders, like you can take like beet powder or Hibiscus powder is a fun one, and just kind of like brush it on the side of a glass, and it adds a tiny bit of flavor. It definitely adds presentation and color. And you can also rim just half of a glass, or rim it in with a pastry brush dipped in a little bit of citrus or honey, and brush it down the side, and then dip that. So there's 3/4 of the glass that you don't have to worry about getting the flavor when you don't want it, but you can go back and forth.
My favorite creative garnish is really appropriate for right now, because at least for us, chives are growing, and it's spring, and I like braiding things, like braiding chive.
She's a horse girl.
Yeah. So I like braiding chive shoots and anything else, and just making it extra fun. I also really
obviously that would go in like a savory drink. We have vegetal drinks in the book, and so you wouldn't want to put that in like a margarita, right? Because that onion scent is going to be weird. But we have like micheladas, and we have Bloody Marys, we have Bloody Bunnies, we have a Verde Maria, which is a green version.
I just like any garnish that I can eat too. So I love like an interactive garnish. Pickled chives, we have those. I like rhubarb, like strips of rhubarb. Something that goes with the drink, makes sense with the drink, but
and it's
then
like getting a snack.
Yeah, it's a little snack on the side.
When you're braiding the chives, that's so cool. And then are you sticking that braid up like as a vertical thing?
Yeah, so I braid like the bottom of it, and then the tops are like just 3 little cookies that just kind of stick out and fan out, and it's just it's very unexpected, and people are always impressed.
Yeah. You see the braid on the inside of the glass. So you braid the bottom, you put that in. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy I asked that question. Oh, thank goodness I remembered it. You girls are so fun. I could talk to you for another hour about this. I'm about to go ham on your website, ordering some stuff, I think, for my baby shower. And also just like my refrigerator as I finish out this 3rd trimester. Where can everyone find you? Because you have your business, you have your socials, you have a lot of things. So where can we find you and follow you and learn from you? And obviously your book.
Yeah, the book, we are such like long form people, and so we're not as great about the social media videos all the time with recipes, but we do put those on our Instagram, which is Simple Goodness Sisters. We have a YouTube channel. It's pretty out of date, I'm going to be honest. We also have our website, and that is our website and our newsletter. Like, that's kind of where I thrive. I like to write. I like to send out recipes in our newsletter. And then our website is simplegoodnesssisters.com, where you can find all of our products. We also do ship our products nationwide. And we have something called a Farm Club box, which is like a subscription. It's like a CSA and a wine club had a baby, and then we send it to your door with recipe cards. So it's a little bit like HelloFresh for cocktails. It's a lot of references, but it's a very fun way to try new flavors all the time, or send a gift to someone.
Is it without, do you get alcohol, or you get the like components of the cocktail and then you have to have your alcohol?
Yep, that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we also have a mocktail version and a cocktail version. And those flavors, what's special about that is that those flavors are flavors that we do one batch of. And then some of those flavors never even hit the website because they just go to our subscription. Sometimes they do if we have extras. It's not an exact science, so sometimes the kettle gives us little extras, and so they will hit the website. But it's a fun way. So like we just launched kiwi, and that was
kiwi berry.
Yeah. It was a weird. I got one little shipment of kiwi from a farmer down the road, and so we made a syrup out of it. I don't know if we'll ever make another syrup out of it, but it's our opportunity to be creative. And
that's where shrubs show up a lot more too. So our bread and butter is these really complex syrups, so shrubs, and so we typically are making the shrubs for Farm Club and then putting them online.
Got it. Oh my God, that's so cool. I also feel like this episode's coming out right at the start of gardening season. Like, even just to treat yourself to like 3 months of the subscription or something, so that you're getting the subscription when you have the majority of your garden in season. That's so fun. Oh my God, I love that. I love you girls. Well, this was so fun. We're going to link everything in the show notes. Go check them out. And I'm happy I beat everybody else. I'm happy I got to go to the website now before everybody listens to this episode, so I can get what I want. But thank you so much. This was so fun. Growing joy.